Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use that promo code DNVR25, because when you do, you get 25% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I'm your host, Drew Creasman. I'm the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. Beat writer Patrick Lyons is shaking off that second shot. Good on him for doing his part. We're letting him have his rest. So it's just the Drews today. You'll have to make do with myself. And, of course, the the voice of the Colorado Rockies on AT&T Sportsnet and the host of the Drew Goodman podcast. Boys and girls, it's Drew Goodman.
What's up, man? It's weird not seeing Patrick. We communicated earlier in the day. Feel better, Patrick. I think we those that have gotten vaccinated all know what he's going through, that second shot, or in some cases the first shot, puts you a little under the weather potentially. So feel better, man.
Yeah. We're hopefully we'll see him again soon. But we have lots to talk about today, Goody, because we've got winning baseball. The Colorado Rockies swept. It counts. It is a 2-game series. They count.
Yeah.
So we've got some pretty darn good baseball to talk about. I do want to begin with a guy. While he didn't have the biggest weekend, or not, it wasn't the weekend, a couple of games. What are days even anymore at this point? But I want to start with Ryan McMahon, because you had him on the podcast this week. I want to make sure people are getting that in. We did talk about him last week. We kind of began with his production on the field, but one of the things I know people are going to get a sense of when they listen to your show, and we've talked about it before, is just the type of guy that Ryan McMahon is. Just the person, the charismatic, knowledgeable, cerebral, present human being, and what it's like to just get to have a conversation with him and watch him take these next steps in his career.
Yeah, he really worked his tail off over the last year plus, and I know he felt good about his swing going into 2020 in what he was working on in March. And then it's so disjointed. They're not playing again until late July, and it's a 60-game season, everything we know. And the results of that weren't really borne out. But this year so far, we've seen that the strikeout rate is way down. His ability to identify pitches and not chase it has been outstanding. And we're seeing the long ball because he has great pop. And in that 2-game series with Houston, there was no, loudness, if you will, to his game, but he threw out 2 hits, I believe 2 for 5 on Wednesday. He threw out a sharp single on Tuesday night. So I think he was like 3 for 9 in the series. Listen, you take 3 for 9 and barreling up a few baseballs over a couple of games, every player would take that. So he's really in a good place. He has a chance to be that next star with the Rockies. And they're all different levels of stardom. We understand that. But he really does. I mean, he can be a 30-plus homer guy that hits in the, 270-plus range and in the middle of the order, driving in a lot of runs, and be a plus defender at a couple of different spots. We didn't even mention defense. So, I'm really happy for his success. As you know, Drew, he's a great kind of kid anymore, but he's a great young man.
Right.
And recently got married. He's been on the podcast a couple times now. I always enjoy our conversations.
Yeah, I wanted to tell you the story. I think I've told it on the podcast before, but the very first time I met Ryan McMahon, it was one of his first games as a professional. He was still 18 years old. He was right out of high school. I was out there kind of to see John Gray and him, because he was their second pick that year. But obviously John was the big headliner, and he ended up hitting a walk-off single up the middle in the first game I was there covering in any kind of professional capacity, as a writer. And and he had fouled off several pitches. And the first time I met him the next day to interview him, he was so excited. And he brought out his bat. He was like, "Look, man, check out all these things from all those foul balls and where I was getting them here." And I knew he was going to go with this. I didn't try to do too much with it. He walked me through the whole at bat. He was just excited to talk baseball. And you see that in him and everything that he does. So that's another reason why I've always thought, man, if he does reach that star level on the field, it's going to play up even more, because he's a star person. He's a star personality. I think he could even be a great natural leader for this team in the future. As we know, one of those guys, we like him because he's great at talking to the media and having a big smile on his face and doing those things, but he really is the complete package.
Yeah, he's fun to be around. He has a lot of personality. He's grounded, though. He's very serious about his craft, but you could tell he's got personality. Guys gravitate toward him, and he's still coming into his own. It takes a while. Or, for every Ronald Acuna and Fernando Tatis Jr. that show up and seem to be, or Juan Soto that seem to be, great from day one. Most guys, it is a process to find out who you are at the highest level of baseball. And we keep seeing better from Ryan McMahon, and I agree with you. I mean, he does have the personality and certain attributes that suggest that he'll be a leader down the road as well. But you know what? In fairness to him, he's off to a really good start, and just let it happen organically. Take it one day at a time before we anoint him as the next such and such. But again, it's been fun to watch, and it's been fun to watch his growth, and he will continue to I think ascend.
It's an interesting question from our guy Wildly Innocent, asking about if Ryan's swing is the prettiest on the club now. Do you get into the aesthetics of swings? Or we all thought like Cargo was an obvious one, right? That was one where you just go, look at hang that thing in a museum. But I've had lots of people that tell me like, hey, Charlie Blackmon's swing may not be, the traditionally, but putting the barrel on the ball is pretty to me. And he does it as well as anybody in the game. So yeah, I've always thought this conversation is really interesting. Are there guys whose swings are more aesthetically pleasing to you?
Yeah, I mean, he has, talking about Chuck, it's a very effective swing, but not saying it's an ugly swing, but there's something too about left-handed swings that always seem a little prettier than most right-handed swings, and McMahon does. I mean, there's an ease to it. There's a classicness to his swing, especially for a guy that generates a lot of pop. I think it helps that he's, like 6'3", and that is a pretty looking swing. I'm kind of going over the top of my head to other guys on the club right now that come to mind in terms of good looking swipes. But he's right there. He definitely is right there. I'd say on the right side, who has a good-looking swing. We haven't seen him during the regular season yet. Hopefully in the not-too-distant future we will. But Brendan Rodgers has a good-looking swing.
Yeah. When I remember watching him take batting practice again out in Grand Junction before he'd even gotten into a game, and just calmly and coolly depositing balls over the left center field wall gap, like, deep parts of – it's shaped out there very similar to how Coors is. The dimensions are very similar. It's like,
yeah, but no, Mac's got a good swing. He has a good swing, and now the key. I've said this many times. No matter what the swing looks like, when you get to the big leagues, you're going to get maybe one pitch in an at bat that is real hittable, and if you don't square that up, if you foul it off, or if you swing and miss, that at bat gets really tough typically. And what he's been able to do so far this year is more frequently than what we've seen in the recent past, he's been able to put that ball in play with authority. And it also seems like he's getting himself in better counts. And again, that's part of the growth. Lower your chase rate where the pitcher has to come into you, and then don't miss it, man. If it's in the hittable zone, don't miss it. Don't miss that fastball in particular that's hittable.
Somebody I wanted to ask you about who I think is going to fit interestingly into this category in years to come is the young catcher, Dom Nuñez. When he connects, it sure does look pretty and go far. Now we know a catcher's primary job is back there behind the dish and all the things that he does, and I think he's doing well there and continuing to grow. And we know that still the batting average isn't pretty, and it's tough to get batting average out of the catcher spot anywhere in baseball. But when you see him launching those, do you start dreaming on the future and saying, hey, maybe he's going to improve those other things? Or do you just go, hey, look, man, if he hits 210, but 25 home runs as a catcher and catches a ball game, is that something that you can get excited about as a catcher of the future for the Rockies? Well,
I'll say this, and this is not a backhanded knock of Tony Walters. I adore Tony. My son is a college catcher, and he would tell people his favorite player is Tony Walters, and most people, he plays in the Midwest. My son does, so people are Tony who's this guy, right? Everybody knows.
Except Cubs fans, they know.
Well, in St. Louis,
hey.
Everybody knows Molina, and back east, JT Realmuto, and Salvador Perez in Kansas City. There has to be the receiver has to know his number one objective that day is to take that starting pitcher and anybody else who wanders out of the bullpen and help shepherd them along and help caddy them to positive results. That you can go 0 for 4 and really have a good day if you're a catcher. I mean, so that still will always be the number one priority. But in fairness, the Rockies had to get more out of the bottom of their order, and the catcher was residing in that 8th spot when there was a DH, typically maybe even in the 9th spot, and they had to get more and hopefully thump out of it. And so we've seen that so far from Don Nuñez, and there's thump in the bat. We've seen it late last year from Elias Diaz. So, to answer your question, Drew, I think that if the Rockies at the end of the year can have 25 plus home runs from that tandem, that's big. And so far, to the point you made, Drew, they've done a nice job receiving the baseball. I think they've done a really good job. Their focus has been good. I think they've handled borderline pitches well in terms of turning, some balls into strikes. They've blocked well. So that part has been good in the team ERA especially from a starter standpoint in particular. Bullpen's had some rough patches, we know, but from a starter standpoint, they've been great. So yeah, they need more. They need more offense. Listen, even with Nolan in the lineup, Drew, you've had this discussion on your podcast, man, multiple times. We've had it when I've joined you and Patrick. Their offense in 2018, when they won 90 plus games and finished in a dead heat with the Dodgers, really wasn't good. 2019 was not good. Last year, 60 games, not good, and that was with Nolan. And so they have to collectively be better with this new group. So if you're getting some oomph out of the bottom of the order from the catcher spot, even if the batting average isn't pretty, but all of a sudden there's a 3-run home run in there in the 5th inning, it's big.
Yeah, it's big stuff. I will say it's, and again, not a shot at any of these guys who've come before. I love Tony Wolf. Somebody asked me on Twitter the other day, I was doing top 5s of everything, and somebody asked me, who are the 5 guys that you've covered who've just treated you the absolute best and made it a joy for you to interview them? And it's hard. There have been many more than 5, but Walters was on that list. So I've got, I'm not taking a shot at anybody, but I will say for a catcher coming to the plate to be appointment television as somebody who covers the Colorado Rockies, it's been a while. And every time Don Nuñez comes up to the plate, you don't want to miss it. The way he turned on that 99 up and in from Jacob deGrom, hit the ball off the top of the wall, it of course almost took him deep. That's one of the most impressive swings we've seen. Again, nothing. Chris Ionnetta's a pro's pro. You look up pro's pro, you'll see a picture of Chris Iannetta. But there's an excitement, I think, that's coming from Dom Nuñez. And Diaz has it. I think we'll see it a little bit more. Like you've said, Nuñez has kind of taken over a little bit because he's hot right now. But out of this catching tandem, kind of a juice to it that we just haven't seen this organization a while, and it's fun and exciting and one of the reasons to watch every single day.
Well, they personify what a lot of these guys are right now, and that is hungry to establish themselves as big leaguers, hungry to win games at the big league level. Yeah, hungry to tell people that have said, oh, the Rockies won't be any good, not so fast, and also number one to say I belong at this level. And I'm going to do more than just belong at this level. I can excel at this level. So you have some highly motivated, lesser service time players, and Dom Nuñez is certainly one of them. Elias Diaz is too. He's been in the big leagues. He's been around a little bit, but he wants to establish himself as a guy. And so it's exciting that Nuñez, who has a pretty swing, when he runs into it, man, it goes far.
Yeah. It is exciting. Like you said, these guys are hungry. And hey, if you're hungry, you should order some beef from our friends at Hassel Cattle Company. Wagyu beef could change your life. It's delicious. I am still sitting at 0% negative reviews on this stuff. Whether you're just getting ground beef, ground chuck, the bacon, which could change your life. I'm not joking. They've also got award-winning hamburgers and steaks if you want to go all out. Check them out at Hassel Cattle Company. It's HASSELL hasalcattlecompany.com. Use the promo code DNVR10. You'll save 10% off your entire purchase. And if you end up ordering over $200, which I highly, highly recommend, you get the free shipping. Really fantastic situation for you there again at hasalcattlecompany.com. I swear they make up like 30% of my diet at this point.
The king of the segue, Drew Creasman.
I do what I can. You set me up too much for that one. The second the word hungry came out of your mouth, I was like, oh, come on.
Boom, commercial.
You throw a pitch down the middle, I'm going to have to swing at it.
That's right.
It's just one of the benefits, by the way, I got to do one more, of being a member of the family here at the DNVR. We're always hooking you up with great beef or coffee or beer, or just saving you insurance, or although the other thing that we do, I guess, providing baseball analysis every single day and written content all the time, and all of the other sports as well. You get access to all of the sports that we cover, all that written content, discounts on hats, shirts, and masks, a bigger beer when you come down to the DNVR bar. If you get the annual right now, we'll send you a free shirt from our DNVR Locker and hook you up with a free holistic stick from our friends at Holistic Wellness. Check them out at HOLISTIK wellness.com. All right. So we were talking about the offense and the young hitters coming along, but I do want to ask you about the role now of the veterans and what you think is going on here. We know Trevor Story has been remarkably unlucky. We've documented it. You've done a great job on your broadcast documenting it, the number of home runs he should have, the exit velocities, all of it. I think Rockies fans know now. But we also see Charlie Blackmon struggling at the plate. Should we be expecting this big explosion from these two guys? And is that going to coincide, you think, with a little bit of a Rockies run?
I hope so. I'll answer that a couple ways. First of all, yeah, Trevor's had good at-bats. Trevor's had, when you look at launch angle and exit velocity and, the ballpark makeup, people never think of Coors Field of actually taking away home runs, but it's a huge ballpark. And, he should have, anywhere from 5 to 8 home runs, which would put him among the league leaders, if not the league leader. So I wouldn't worry about it. He drove a ball down the line, got out front a little bit, but produced a couple RBIs to get the Rockies off and running in Wednesday afternoon's ball game. He's going to be fine. One thing I've noticed about Charlie lately is the walks are up. And Charlie's an aggressive guy, but it seems like the last few ball games he's walked a couple times. And so that tells me he's starting to see the ball really well. I know I visited with him recently, and he doesn't feel like he's that far off. The track record, the back of the baseball card tells you that Charlie will hit. The back of the baseball card is extensive enough with Trevor Story. He's going to hit. If it coincides, look out. And the other part that I want to, mention right now that is not necessarily, singular to those two guys in nature, but more collective. The Rockies opened the season playing 7 games in the opening week and a half against the Dodgers, who may be the best roster I've seen, period. I don't mean in the last couple of years. I mean, period. Right. It really may be. Right. And it can lend one to believe, because the Rockies are not in the class of the Dodgers, that, they're just terrible and it's just going to be a horrendous year. We don't know what's going to transpire going forward. But I will tell you that there are more teams that have an incomplete roster like most years, or short in certain areas, typically, similar to the Rockies, than there are teams that are close to what the Dodgers have put together. They're in an island. They're on an island by themselves. Even as many moves and really good moves as the Padres have made. The Padres are not the Dodgers. Padres are really good, but they're not. Yeah. They're not the Dodgers. So the point I'm trying to make is that as this season unfolds and you play the Giants more and you play the Diamondbacks more and you go to some of the other divisions and you see some of the other teams, and the Mets are really good on paper. I thought the Rockies competed nicely with the Mets. I know Houston, they got a lot of their guys back with the exception of Altuve, and of course, Yordan Alvarez can't play in a National League park because he's strictly a DH. But we know that's a good team, and they took 2 from them. So let's see how it plays out when they play, other teams not named the Dodgers.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. We've talked about that a bit. And even specifically, too, like the number of Cy Young winners, not Cy Young contenders, not really good pitchers, guys who've already got a Cy Young award on their mantle that they've faced so far this year is kind of absurd. And I think one of the guys who doesn't that they faced was, of course, the MVP of the World Series, the only guy who's ever won a World Series all by himself, Madison Bumgarner. I don't think he's ever actually won the Cy Young, but it's like this is the quality of pitching. Johnny Cueto in the great game, like that was one of the lesser elite pitchers that they've faced so far this season. So yeah, I think once you start seeing them face some of these other guys, like I still think we've not predicted the Rockies to win a lot of games here on this podcast, but more than a lot of people have projected out there. I'll tell you that much, and a lot of it has to do with the quality of the starting pitching, which I think also follows this point that you're making. We talked all off season, but the starting pitching is going to be so good. Tune in, then you get these games right out of the gate against the best lineup maybe ever. You get knocked around a little bit, and people are going, "Are they that great?" Well, now they look locked in. We've seen from Gomber. Gray's been great all year, but Gomber looks a lot better, a lot more locked in now. Senzatello's been good. Marquez is starting to show again to be dominant, and they're going to get to add Kyle Freeland back into this mix before too long. Chichi Gonzalez has been sneaky very good this year. So it's nice to see that the part of the team that was advertised to be the best is showing up now.
Yeah. John Gray's been great. 4 starts, 242 earned run average, and he has, clearly faced the Dodgers also. He's been great at Coors Field. He's kind of the more recent Jorge De La Rosa. He wins at Coors Field. And Germán, we haven't seen the best out of Germán yet, but he's still been solid. He gives you a chance every time, and we know how good his stuff is. Senzatello, when he hasn't faced the Dodgers, has been terrific. He's been terrific. And Chichi's thrown out a couple of good ball games, as you mentioned. And the guy who threw yesterday, I said this back in March, first time I saw him pitch in person. I was aware of, clearly, just like you and you and Patrick, of the numbers with Gomber. Small sample size, but what he did in St. Louis. This guy's a pro. This guy's good. I mean, he has a plus curveball. And if you remember, Drew, in game 1, which he was too amped up, he was pretty clear. Let's just forget about his first start in a Rockies uniform.
Yeah,
I don't care who it would have come against. He was just so amped up. He wanted to do well. Natural human emotions took over, and he didn't throw the ball very well at all. He went out on the road, 2 really good starts. We saw that great curveball, and he put it in play at home. First start against the Dodgers, he threw his curveball at home only 8%. He went out on the road and he threw it between 24 and 27%. And I was fascinated yesterday to see, would he utilize it more? Because it's his best pitch.
Yeah.
And he has 3 other quality pitches now. He's a true 4-pitch mix. Well, you watched the game from the press box. You saw what I saw. He threw his curveball again in the 22, 23% range. He got 5 of his 6 strikeouts on the curveball. He is a guy that is, I'm impressed with. And I'm not trying to make him Clayton Kershaw. Don't get me wrong, but this is a real quality middle of the rotation starting pitcher, I think, and I think that will be borne out over time. Will he have a hiccup? All pitchers have hiccups, man. I watched Lucas Giolito, who threw a no-hitter a week and a half ago, get blown up in his last start. It's still the big leagues. We understand that. But Austin Gomber and the rest of that rotation, they're giving the Rockies a chance, and that's why hopefully they can put together some more wins that compile some more wins before they head out on the road.
Yeah, I've been very, very impressed with. We call him Blake Street Gomber. Is that what we're landing on?
I saw that somewhere. Was that your doing?
That might have been. I think that was Makayla. That was our gal Makayla. I don't know if anyone else said that before her, but she hit me with that, and I immediately went, And I was with you. I was curious about the 2 things. What do you use the curveball and the Coors Field element? Like, is how do you respond to it? Because it's always about I always think Coors Field is less about what it does to you and more about how you respond to it, right? You guys have talked about this on the broadcast a lot, but it was knowing that he had such a rough start there the first time. If there is a blooper and a blast, or he walks a guy and gives up a 2-run home run on a breaking ball that happens to hang, which he did early in the game, how does he respond to that? So the thing I was really impressed, well, I guess the number one thing just still has to be the curveball. That thing is ridiculous, but was his attitude, was the way he attacks the top of the strike zone with his curveball and isn't afraid to then throw the fastball high up above the hands to keep guys honest and have them guessing. And you saw a lot of very good World Series winning hitters doing a lot of this herky-jerky, not quite sure if that thing was going to drop there or stay there. He had them guessing. He had them jumping. And it didn't seem like the snow bothered him at all, where the Astros pitchers were showing it. You know, we're doing a lot of all this. They were showing it in their body language. Gomber didn't seem bothered by a thing, including the 2-run home run. And for me, that's always been a huge indicator of what could make a successful Rockies pitcher, is because you're going to give up the 2-run home run. Hopefully you don't walk the guy, you give up the solo shots, but you're going to give them up. It's how do you respond? And the way he responded, wow.
Drew, I think that's a great point. And I want to jump in right there and embellish what you said. Think about his first start, which we kind of documented, rough start against the Dodgers. This was his second start at Coors Field. And the Rockies stake him to an early 2-0 lead. And then in the second inning, he throws a kind of a center cut slider, and Yuli Gurriel hits it about 430 feet. It could have been an uh-oh moment. I heard about this place. I'm now a handful of innings into my Coors Field career. I had one terrible start, and now I felt good, and the team got me an early lead, and bang, I just gave up a 2-run home run. For a lesser guy in terms of mental toughness, it may have turned south. It didn't. He went and got the next 3 hitters. He went and had a quick the Rockies got him the lead back, and then he had a shutdown inning, a very quick shutdown inning. So that, to your point, I think really was impressive. It's something that he can carry with him going forward, because you're going to give up some runs at Coors Field. We all know that. And I think it was impressive to Buddy Black. It was impressive to Steve Foster how he handled that. He's made, as Buddy likes to say, he's made of the right stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Our good friend Tracy Ringlesby loves to tell this story about Pedro Estacio talking to John Gray at an early turning point in his career when he started becoming much more consistent. And the single sentence of advice that he gave to him: don't give up the next one.
Yeah. Well, Pedro will always be, Petey will always be one of the toughest starting pitchers the Rockies have ever had. All he cared about was being involved in a handshake at the end of the ball game. And if he gave up 4, he gave up 4. If he gave up 5, he gave up 5. He would just try to make sure that he kept his team one run ahead of whatever the opponent was doing. And of course, what Petey was doing, it was pre-humidor. So, right. you go pitch 6 2/3 and give up 5 runs. Of course, that's not great if you're at Dodger Stadium typically. But at Coors Field back in the day, that really gave you an opportunity to win. And he didn't care about what the personal numbers were. He cared about whether there was a W or an L next to the club at the end of the day. So he will always be one of my all-time favorite Rockies pitchers. And the fact that he's around the club, so the fact that he's able to convey that to young pitchers as he did John Gray is really meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there are people who ask me this question, with the feeling like the team's not going to win enough games this year. I get asked this question all the time. Why should I watch this team every day? And I'll tell you what, every day they're handing the baseball to a starting pitcher who's exciting to watch pitch. And as a baseball fan, that's just a treat. It's not always the case. And I do think, we're going to see what happens with the young hitters and if the bullpen can stabilize and all of those things. But the fact that every day you get to start by handing the ball to a guy who's going to go out there, compete his ass off. Some of these guys are working for, whatever their next contract needs to be or how long they can stay with the Rockies or whatever it is. But like you said, they're still proving themselves, but also have enough of a resume that you should be excited to watch them play. Anything could happen at any moment. We've seen John Gray set strikeout records. We've seen Armen Marquez come a seeing eye single through the left side from a no-hitter in San Francisco. We watched Kyle Freeland be the second best pitcher in the National League in 2018. I don't care what the Cy Young voters say. He was the second best. But it's just exciting, Goody, every single day to be like, man, this guy could go out there and pump 7 innings with 7 strikeouts, and it wouldn't be a surprise if any member of the rotation, maybe Chi-Chi's not going to get you 7 strikeouts, but as we mentioned, once Freeland comes back, and you got to be excited about what Chi-Chi's doing too. It's really cool.
Well, here's the thing that from what I can derive has gone on in that clubhouse and what will is continuing to go on. And now you have a little bounce in your step because they've won a couple in a row. The record's still not pretty at 6-12. We understand that. But we heard this throughout spring training, talking to Ryan McMahon at length this week on my podcast. They're upbeat. CJ Cron keeps them upbeat. Here's the guy that fans may not know is a witty guy and a lighthearted guy. And I know he had a big game on Tuesday night, which was great to see. But they have a focus and a belief that they're much better than what the record states right now. And so, play the games. Let's see where this goes. And we understand, and we've talked about it ad nauseum. I know certainly you and Patrick have, and I have, on my podcast about the disappointment of Nolan being traded. Get that, understand that. And there's, still considerable, vitriol out there. But this group of 26, let's see where they go. They're not going to be confused yet with the 27 Yankees. We understand that. But let's just see what kind of growth there is. And to your observation, I think that is one of the exciting things about following a season of baseball. We all know when guys are established what we can expect, from the Trevor Stories, the Charlie Blackmons of the world. But every team, when you have younger players and you're not fully sure yet who they're going to be, watching that development, I think, can be really fascinating and captivating and compelling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at a guy like, and I was just making this point the other day, I've said to people that I've always thought that this version of the Rockies was a lot more unknown than the people who wanted to come out and call them straight bad. And look at a guy like Jonathan Daza, who's never been a top prospect, never been anything. Even I had somebody who's paid very close attention to prospects during his time. I've seen a lot of Jonathan Daza play. He kind of was, to me, like right there next to Raimel Tapia. And I was always looking at Raimel Tapia going, this is an exciting player. This is going to be really interesting. Daza, I'm not sure can make it. Great defender, great runner. I don't know that he's got enough pop in that bat. I don't think he's going to make enough contact. You look down, he's hitting 333, grabs his first career home run the other day. He's putting the ball in the gap. And will it continue? We don't know. We don't know. Jonathan Daza is in the driver's seat right now. He's going to tell us, and we're going to watch and find out. But all the prognosticating, and this guy doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. Let's find out. Let's let the young man play. And that to me has been, those are the kinds of things that are really exciting. A guy like that who almost nobody predicted to have a lengthy Major League Baseball career. Right now, he's looking like a guy who could carve out a nice little career for himself. And that's
Drew,
so impressive.
Drew, let's face it. No one knew for sure, including people in the front office, whether he was going to be with the Rockies come April 1st. He had to make the club. He had to have the kind of March that he had because he was out of options. They weren't just going to, it wasn't, as you said, some, top prospect where you said, all right, even if he doesn't do well, we got to put him on the club because he's out of options. He had to earn his way to going north from Scottsdale, and he did. And to his credit lately, as you have chronicled, he's been really good. Now, you were talking earlier, and I don't mean this to be, in any way, demeaning, but, when you're talking about pretty swings, I mean, you don't look at Daza and go, boy, that's a gorgeous swing. But you know what? He hit well over 300 in the minor leagues. We know he's been a very good defender. He's got a strong throwing arm. Who knows? There's it's not always pretty. And there's a reason that he hit 313 in his minor league career. Let's see, given opportunities, what he can do. And lately, he's been provided opportunities, and he has come through. He had a loud double on Tuesday night to the base of the right center field wall. He had his first career home run, a no-doubter yesterday afternoon. So we all want to, not just fans, not just, broadcasters, not just writers, even people who are paid to evaluate, scouts, assistant general managers, farm directors, they have to have an opinion. They have to, provide an educated opinion and a guesstimate as to what a player will become. That doesn't mean that that player is going to adhere to what you prognosticate about them. I think it's beautiful when all of a sudden a guy becomes, a star level player and everybody thought he was going to be a utility guy. You don't know. It's the beauty of sport, and particularly baseball, because it is hard to just look at a guy and say, okay, this is what he'll become. Because we've seen the other way too. This guy's a can't miss. We ran something out there, Drew, on the broadcast the other day. Think about this. I think this is really interesting. The Houston Astros were miserable. What was it? 11 to 13, 12 to whatever it was, where they lost 100+ games every year.
You're like 3 years in a row. Yeah.
Yeah. And we also know they've been in the ALCS 4 years in a row. And prior to last year, which was a shortened season, naturally, they won 100+ games, which has only been done a handful of times in the history of the game. 3 straight years winning triple digits. So go back to when they were awful and they were losing 100 games a year. They had the first pick in the draft, 1-1, 3 straight years. The first year, they got it right. They took Carlos Correa, right?
Yeah, nailed it.
Become a outstanding player, correct?
Yep, there he is.
The next year, do you know who they took?
Is that Mark Appel?
They took Mark Appel, who never has pitched in the big leagues, out of Stanford. He tried to make a comeback with Philadelphia this spring. Unfortunately for Mark, it didn't work out, and he was released. Never pitched in the big leagues with Houston. That was their next number 1 pick. The next year, they had the 1-1 again, and they took Brady Aiken, who they couldn't sign.
Right.
So in 3 years of being flat out awful, they get the first pick 3 straight years. They didn't do a Washington who ended up with Bryce Harper and Steven Strasburg and basically turned their franchise around, even though they won the World Series once Bryce Harper was in Philadelphia. They got one right. And it's not like the other 2 guys were okay. They were solid. They never became the superstar. They never played in the big leagues.
Didn't do a single thing.
And yet they became, talking about Houston, a great team.
I forgot about Brady.
You never know is the long-winded point of that diatribe.
Meanwhile, DJ LeMahieu was a throw-in, right, as they say, when he came over to the Colorado Rockies, and even there for the first couple of years. We were actually taking about that. Well, let me make this point on the other side, because if I forget to do this, I'll get in trouble. Look, this whole conversation is just putting a big smile on my face. I'm very excited about it. And my big smile is brought to you by our friends over at Green Mountain Dental Group, located just 15 minutes outside of downtown Denver. They'll give you a free Sonicare toothbrush when you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam today. Whether you just need a checkup, you need some big stuff done, like Lindsay and Makayla have had. You've heard all about their personal experiences. They really do treat you like family out there. They're the absolute best. So if you need to get some dental work done, especially if you're like me and you don't especially love going into the dentist office, they treat you well, they make you comfortable, they get you taken care of. Check them out at greenmountaindental.com. Green Mountain Dental Group, free Sonicare toothbrush when you schedule that cleaning, x-ray, and exam today. And where's our last one? Looks like it's Gabby Insurance for today. Gabby stands for Get a Better Insurance. That's exactly what they do. GABI.com/DNVR. Saved me $480 for the year just on car insurance. Our guy, Eric Weedham, has a whole bunch of things he's got insured, so he ended up saving over $1,000. It doesn't cost you a thing. There are no text messages, no emails, none of that stuff. You just go to GABI.com/DNVR, spend less than 10 minutes putting in your information about your home or car insurance, and then boom, they hit you with a whole bunch of quotes about how much money you can save, which company you want to go with. You pick the one, you save money. Costs you nothing. So only one of our sponsors, as I've often said, that costs you $0 and actually puts more money back into your pocket so that you can spend that on Wagyu beef and Breck Brew and those kinds of things. But check them out again today at GABI.com/DNVR. All right. Now I forgot the point I was making. Whenever I do that, I was like, I'm going to get into a point. No, let me do the read. And it's gone. It's totally gone. What were we just discussing?
What were we talking about? We were
right?
talking about the Gas House Gang of the Cardinals back in the
Yeah, right. Oh, I remember now. Looking at the future, and I was thinking back to the last big sort of blockbuster trade that had Rockies fans not feeling well with the Troy Tulowitzki deal, and kind of looking at the team around that time in that 2014, 2015 range, and looking at some of the names on the roster. Particularly 2014 is really interesting because that was one of the worst years in franchise history by like record and a lot of the stats and all of these things. But you look at the names, you're like, Charlie Blackmon, DJ LeMahieu, Nolan Arenado, Troy Tulowitzki, Todd Helton. Why? But like Helton's at the very end of his career, and DJ and Charlie really were not yet DJ and Charlie. And when you think back to that time, people weren't saying, hey, these guys are perennial future all-stars, going to get some MVP awards. This Charlie Blackmon is going to be maybe the greatest leadoff hitter of all time here in a couple of years. Nobody, there was no way to see that coming. Even with Nolan Arenado, who was a highly touted prospect coming into 2014 as a rookie, it's like, hey, the defense looks great, but he had just hit like 260. The pop was maybe there was no way to know that he was going to become what he became. So I think when we look at this team now and people go, okay, Ryan McMahon taking that step forward, maybe Nuñez, do they have these guys? Do they not? And you feel comfortable saying, they're not going to be that. But were you saying the same thing about DJ LeMahieu in 2014 and 2015? Probably.
On paper, their depth in the minor leagues, again, on paper, is not as good as, supposedly a number of other teams. And what I think has to transpire, and this statement would work for every franchise in baseball, but I think it's of particular importance for the Rockies this year to to have these young guys play, minor league baseball returns, in the next couple of weeks, and they need guys getting professional at bats and seeing how quickly, some of these guys can emerge. We know about the Welkers and the Volades of the world, but Zach Veen, he hasn't played in a year and a half. Their number one pick, who was, arguably the top high school bat in the draft a year and a half ago. So that has to, or a year ago, that needs to take place. And we'll start to see some development, and you start stockpiling guys to find out who is the next so-and-so and who can help them win games at the major league level, and how quickly can some of these guys arrive. I mean, that's another part of the equation. We've seen with other teams where guys show up and at a precocious age, and really have an impact on the win-loss column. And it doesn't have to be, they're 25 and now they're ready, or they're 26 and now they're ready. Sometimes the process can be accelerated with certain players.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really interesting. You've mentioned you've comped Colton Welker to Garrett Atkins, and obviously it's not like you expect him to show up at the big leagues and be that right away. That's something he can probably work into. But on the off chance it happens, you throw a Garrett Atkins quality hitter into this lineup, and it sure does shake things up in an interesting way before too long. So I think that those are always the kinds of things you watch out for, and you don't know. I'm going to be very excited to see Ryan Rolison. He was somebody that the club's been very aggressive with, moving him through his minor league career. So there's some very intriguing guys out there. Like you said, on paper, maybe not as many, but some of these guys have popped as well. Josh Fuentes was never an exciting guy on paper throughout. We know he's struggling with the bat a little bit, but the defense he's shown off has been next level stuff. So it's just, we're going to find out. That's part of the fun of baseball. I did see this question here from my mom, and I get this one a lot from friends that have asked, is it difficult covering the Rockies when they're losing ball games like this? And, obviously everybody loves winning more than losing. It's always better to cover a team that's winning than losing. But watching these guys, this is a lot more fun for me than if there were a bunch of 32-year-olds who I knew what they were capable of, and they just weren't quite winning enough ball games, as opposed to these guys who some days they're going to go 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, but some days they're going to show you what's possible, and you don't know which days are going to be which.
Well, I've referenced this a number of times this year already, and that is it's a year of opportunity, and that's what you've said basically as well. It's a year of opportunity to find out who some of these guys are and who they potentially can be in the near term, and next year and the year after that. And we we know who we're talking about. The Hampsons, the Tappies, most of those guys, they're not established yet. Even McMahon, who's got more service time than the other guys. It's not like he has 2,000 at bats at the big league level. He doesn't. Nowhere close to that. So it isn't about opportunity, and it's about how fast some of these guys can reach whatever their ceiling is. And maybe their ceiling for some won't be good enough. And maybe some ceiling will be higher than many had projected. And that is the interesting part of this season, and where it takes us. Sometimes guys can pick it up pretty quickly, and what you witnessed in April, all of a sudden you're looking in June and go, wow, he doesn't swing at that pitch, that slider, or just off the plate anymore. He's walking now. And that pitch that he seemed to be a little tardy with, that fastball and a plus count, he's driving it now. So that's, again, the beauty of sport, and it's also the beauty of baseball because of the volume of games, the volume of opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. The volume of opportunities. Like I said, it's like you get excited about these young guys coming up at the plate every 4 times a day. They might strike out the first 3 times, but that 4th time, I'm still like, yeah, but if someone makes a mistake.
Yeah, and something else I want to note that, and some of this that I'm about to say is attributable to this time of year, and some of it is this era that we are watching baseball in at this level. And that is going into today's ball games, Thursday, April the 22nd, the league average was 232. The batting average at 232. Yeah. Home runs are down also. I mean, cold weather, some of it, the baseball, maybe a larger part of that. So strikeouts continue to be at a record pace. It's not just the Rockies. If you're looking out there and going, boy, man, they struck out 10 times today, and they got 3 hits. It's an industry-wide issue. I think it'll get better as the weather warms, but you're not going to see a collective batting average of 255, 260. It's just the pitching right now is so dominant, and the offensive philosophy has changed.
Yep.
That big swing and ball over fence is going to trump contact right now until maybe it swings back the other direction. Maybe there's that team that says, no, we want to really lower the strikeouts, put the ball in play, and they win a lot of games, and then you always have the copycat effect. That's why the Dodgers, quite frankly, are so good. They hit the ball over the wall, but they have a very high contact rate, a very low chase rate, so they're walking. Their on-base percentage is the top of baseball, and yet they can still impact, the ball with a quick strike offense up and down that lineup. That's why they are so unique. But overall, it's not just the Rockies. I mean, offensive numbers are way down. They've been down for a while, and they continue to be in terms of putting together a 10-12 hit attack. It's not happening on a regular basis anywhere.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see the way, and frustrating in some ways. We've talked about that before, the 3 true outcomes game. But I want to, before we wrap up on this one, I want to play a little game with you, some non-baseball stuff. I'll do one baseball of these, but Patrick and I have been playing this game, start, bench, cut, where basically, we give you a category, 3 things. You got to decide what's your starter, what's your bench, and which one in the 3 category you're out of there. You're not taking that one. So I'll start you with a music one, and I'll start you with Beatles, Stones, Zeppelin.
Oh, wow.
Your starter, who's the bench, and who, if you had to, you could go without listening to.
Start, bench, cut. I mean, that's tough, but I have to provide you with an answer. So I will go. I'll start with the Stones. Stones start.
Nice.
What start, bench, cut? Bench, Beatles. And it's tough, but I guess I would cut
Zeppelin.
I was even thinking, believe it or not, this is like blasphemous, but I was going to cut the Beatles only because their music is so ubiquitous, and you've heard it, your entire life. So you go, okay, but it's probably true for the Stones
right.
and Zeppelin also. But that's my answer.
The Beatles also exist like in several other artists, right? So you can almost cheat because there's so many Beatles covers. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. I was never a Beatles guy until I started writing music, and then I was like, oh, I get it. I understand. I understand why they're such a big deal now. Yeah. Those ones are tough. All right, this was another. I do want to give you one baseball one that I threw at Patrick the other day. This is really, really tough. It's young star players in the game right now: Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Ronald Acuna Jr.
Boy,
this one was brutal. Patrick and I labored over this. I do think we ended up with the same order.
Okay.
You only start one guy.
Yeah, I don't want to get too long-winded. And,
yeah,
they're three great players.
Yeah, look, right.
And you're always influenced by what a guy's doing now.
Right, this moment, exactly.
At this moment. Soto's on the injured list. Tatis always seems like he's a moment away from being on the injured list. So I'm gonna take Ronald Acuna Jr. as my starter. This is crazy that I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put Soto coming off the bench. And because I have to make a choice, and I think Tatis is wonderful for the game, and he's marvelously talented. The reason I'm going to have to put him in the cut category, is that ridiculous as that sounds, is I'm concerned, as I'm sure the Padres are, about his ability to stay on the field.
Right.
So that's how I answer it.
That Patrick and I actually had very similar logic. We both had Tatis Jr. in the cut category. We did start Soto though. I think that was right before he went on, but Soto just doing ridiculous things at the plate. I mean, yeah, there's not a wrong answer.
There's not, but the reason I had to make a choice, but Acuna's off to a ridiculous start, and he can fly.
Yeah.
You start looking at other tools. Soto has the best approach and the best eye I've ever seen for a kid at that age. And but Ronald Acuna is, they're special talents, all of them.
Right. I'll give you another non-baseball one.
Okay, this is good. I like this game.
Horror movies, action movies, and dramas.
That's easy.
Sit down to watch a flick. Okay, I was hoping I could get you.
That's easy. What is it again?
Action movies, dramas, and horror.
I'm gonna start dramas. I'm gonna put on the bench action films, and I'm not a horror movie guy, so I could give a rat's ass about horror movies.
Love it. Same. Yeah, we have the same order here. I believe Patrick was the horror movie guy. I think he started the horror movies. Was into the action. He was cutting dramas. He doesn't need all that in his life. Apparently, we're going to sit down and listen to people argue very intensely in our films.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, since that one was easy, I have to give you the hard one that Patrick made for me. For a home run derby, Rockies players, Bichette, Castilla, Galarraga. For a home run derby, who's winning the home run derby for your team? You got to start, bench, cut.
Well, Bichette, Castilla, Galarraga. Galarraga hit the longest home run anybody's ever seen down in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Dante can still to this day, just with his top hand, hit the ball out of the ballpark, which is ridiculous. Amazing. He used to do that last swing of every round of batting practice just out on the field. Just top hand. Freakishly strong. Vinny hit over 300 home runs in his big league career. Wow. This is a home run derby.
Yeah, this is how I made it easier for myself, was getting really into the weeds on like home run derby approach and strategy here.
Yeah.
But I will say my answer hurt me physically to say.
Yeah. I think I will go just raw power. I will go Big Cat off the bench. Vinny. I mean, it's silly, and I'll
yeah.
Fortunately, I'll put because Bichette, I'll say sometimes you spread out. Well, it's a home run derby, so but I have to have somebody third. So that's how I'll go. And you can very easily juggle it the other way. So
that was so close to my answer because we did the same thing, both in terms of its logic and the way you refuse to say the actual phrase. And I'm cutting.
No, I can't do that. I can't do it. I just had Bichette I just had Bichette on the podcast a few weeks ago. Love Dante.
Like anytime I hear the song Sledgehammer, I get excited about Dante Bichette. It felt so wrong. So I said, like, for the home run derby, I'm taking Bichette maybe to hit a home run in a live game more, but it hurt me. It hurt me physically to do. So I had to pass that one off on you because Patrick made me do it.
There was a great story that was floating around the Twitter universe today. We lost the great Don Baylor way too young, and Dante had related a story about Baylor. They were in Boston and they were working out at a gym that's right across the street from Fenway Park. In fact, it can be landed on by a home run, as Bo Bichette did yesterday. He hit a ball out of the ballpark and it landed where this gym used to be. And that's where, Dante first, the story first met what would become his wife. And he didn't say a whole lot to her. And he came back to the ballpark, and Baylor was his manager, or actually at the time was his hitting coach. This is in Milwaukee, I believe. And he said, I met this girl named Mary Ann, and she's, I'm smitten by her, right? And he goes, "What are you doing here? Go on back there right now." Because he was kind of shy. So he went back, and the rest, as they say, is history. And then Bo hits a home run yesterday at Fenway for Toronto that landed approximately right where that weight room was, where Dante ended up meeting Bo's mom.
You just have to love stuff like that. And like you said, it happens in lots of sports, but I feel like in baseball, those kinds of things they seem to happen. And it's also great for me because Bo Bichette is on my superstars team. We drafted before the season Makayla, Patrick, our guy Spencer, who does the golf stuff here, and I all pick from all the teams in baseball. You get a certain number of points for home runs and all-star appearances and MVP. And I went, look, if I'm taking a long shot, because by that point I was like, I think the people who are most likely to win MVP are off the board. But we know somebody comes, a lot of MVPs aren't the guy you expect going into the year. So I was like, who's someone who could take that jump? And I went and grabbed Bo Bichette. I figured if nothing else, he's going to hit some homers for me. But as a young leader of a young team that's exciting and fun and could surprise some people. And then obviously, loved his dad.
Listen, quick story, Drew. Vladdy Jr. is off to a great start. We know how celebrated his talent has been as he, rose through the minor leagues, the son of a great player naturally, and an abundance of talent. Needed to get himself in better shape. I don't think that's, speaking outside the lines. Bo Bichette is really close with Vladdy Jr. and has had a big influence. He's a young player. Both the guys are young players, but Bo has had a really big influence on Vladdy. Vladdy's cleaned up the body quite a bit, and we're starting to see some of those results. Yeah. So it's interesting how it's not always the veteran guy mentoring the young guy. In this case, it was another young guy, a contemporary, having a strong influence on another contemporary.
Yeah, that's really cool and special. It can be difficult when you're doing that yourself to be able to do that in the league. I want to get you one last non-baseball start bench cut just for fun out of here. Which one do we got? That's a little too. No, I'll do it. I'll do it. Larry, Curly, and Mo.
You know what?
You're a Three Stooges guy.
I'm trying to remember back and to distinguish between each guy. I'll start Curly, have Mo come off the bench and cut Larry. Does that work?
Love it. Love it. Works for me. And what was the other guy's name? Nope, forgot it. Shep?
No, don't ask me.
All right. Not a Three Stooges guy, confirmed. And not a horror movie guy. So now we know that.
No, I'm not a horror movie guy.
Gotcha. Stones guy, though. What's your favorite Stones song? or a couple of them? What do you tune on to?
There's
Classics.
so many great Stones songs, but I have eclectic music interests.
Like that.
I've come to realize, but yeah, I mean, when you say like all time musical artists, I mean, I really like the Stones, but I wouldn't necessarily have them, at the top of the chart.
Who are your like handful of?
I'm
very curious now in your eclectic.
What
are you listening to now? Yeah, that's an interesting.
I'm a huge Zach Brown fan. I'm a huge Darius Rucker fan. I'll always be a huge Billy Joel guy. I think you talk about song. You dabble in songwriting. I mean, Billy Joel's a great songwriter.
Right. Yes.
Those guys. I mean, Elton John is timeless. I like Sinatra. I told you so. I used to go there, especially when I was working in the NBA, and we'd invariably from the West Coast get back, and it'd be 3:34 in the morning. Driving home, I would put Sinatra on. So I kind of have. I'm still a big '70s guy, and there's some great one-hit wonders. I just put Brandy on by Looking Glass before I started the podcast. Well, I bounce around, dude, but I'm a big Zach Brown fan. That puts me in a good place. I put Bob Seger on the other day in the Silver Bullet Band. So there you go.
Get with Stouter. Go with Mark Stout.
Listen, I work with two guys that have forgotten more music than I'll ever know. Mark Stout being one. We went to college together. We didn't really know each other that well in college. We knew who each other was.
I'm sure I knew that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then and I think Mark's a year ahead of him, and I like to point that ahead of me, and I like to point that out. And Dougie, Doug, who's our research stat guy, Doug Marino, huge music guy. So those guys both have. Forgotten more music than I know. However, I love to debate Doug because he'll go, "Oh, that guy you like, that's bad music." I'm like, wait, it's subjective, man. If I like it, then it can be good music. Just because you don't like it doesn't make it bad music. But those guys are great. They know they can play Guess That Band far better than I can.
I was gonna say,
guess who the bass guitarist is in that band.
Right.
Go there with me. You're not gonna win.
There's
you're gonna win, and I'm gonna lose.
Well, right. There's definitely an alternate history where Doug is a roadie who goes around with a great band and knows everybody and does all of those things, and he's got the hair for it too. But like the whole look, you just see him. You're like, no, man, it was actually back in '72 when they did it live that they really discovered themselves. You're just like, yeah. I just love it. Oh yeah, the REO Speedwagon stuff in LA. That was fun. Walker showing up.
You know what? Walk was with their guitarist, and I've seen REO a couple of times. I saw him at Red Rocks. In fact, I saw him at Summerfest in Milwaukee one year when we were there with the Rockies and they were playing the Brew Crew. So I've seen REO's fun, man. Good band.
Yeah. Dug it all. I got to see a couple of those kinds of bands come through the theater when I was a kid out in Grand Junction. Saw like America and Kansas and some.
I just put America on.
Just playing a little.
I just said to Alexa, I said play America.
Little Horse with No Name. A little.
America is stealing another buddy phrase. Sneaky good band.
Sneaky good
band. A lot of good tunes. Like you listen to something, and you ever listen and you go, who's that by? And then you go, oh, America. And then you listen again, a little while later. That's a good tune. Who's it? America.
Yeah.
Second, they weren't one-hit wonders. They had a compilation of good tunes.
Yeah. I found that's happened for a couple of modern bands with me, actually. The Strumbellas is the most recent one. Where I was like, I had no idea who they were, but they're like a couple of different songs. And my fiance goes, this is the Strumbellas. I go, oh, that's the same band? Oh, okay. Maybe I like these guys. I don't know.
You can go home. You can go home and say this guy I do the podcast with once a week has no idea who the Strumbellas are.
It's great, right? Yeah. I didn't either until just recently. Well, this has been fun. Appreciate it. Always always good to get to know each other. I love doing these things too with our audience and stuff. We'll do more start bench cut another time with you.
Yeah, I like that game. I like that game.
Even though it's very difficult and mean sometimes. Like, I'm not cutting Dante Bichette and you can't make me. I refuse. We're having a blast here. Obviously, I know all of you are having a good time out there. We really appreciate you. Make sure that you're not missing a second. You subscribe to the DNVR.com so you get access to all that written content. You're hanging out with us here on YouTube, subscribing to that channel, hitting the bell icon that'll let you know when we're going live. Know you're watching all the games on AT&T Sportsnet, but if you haven't yet, if you've been putting it off, subscribe to the Drew Goodman podcast right now on whatever podcast app you're using to listen to this show. You don't want to miss out. You want to go back and listen to episodes with all kinds of fantastic classic Rockies. Obviously, we got current Rockies, Ryan McMahon being on there, media people like the 2-part one with Jenny Kavnar's can't miss, all of it. It's can't miss stuff for Colorado Rockies fans. And I know you can't get enough because you just hung out with us for an hour on a Thursday when the, frankly, 6-12 Colorado Rockies aren't playing a baseball game. I know you can't get enough of this stuff. So subscribe to the Drew Goodman podcast because it's just more of that good that you know you need. Otherwise, make sure you're following on social media at Drew Creasman, at Patrick D. Lyons, and wish him well, at DNVR_Rockies, and of course at Drew Goodman 42. We can only otherwise hope that you continue to be absolutely awesome out here. We'll continue to be absolutely the Drews, Creasman, and Goodman in here. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.